Hello. Can I just start? Yeah. I know. Yeah. But you were the person that responded. Okay. So, good afternoon. And my name is Jorgensen. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself after the first slide. Hopefully captured some of your attention in the first slide. I haven't done this, not a trick, probably a trick, but I don't call it a trick. I haven't done this type of presentation using this slide in several years, but it's been very effective for me in the past to get things started in the right direction. I wouldn't leave the room if I were okay, so what we do on this is I actually have that $100, okay? And each of you, hopefully, if you don't borrow from a friend, has a $1 bill, US, okay? So if you don't have a dollar bill, I can have them. You have to pay it back. Who does not have a $1 bill? You need to borrow one? You need to borrow one? If you have one, you have to get it out if you have it. It's required that you have your $1 bill here to borrow it. Let's see if I have another $1 bill. Does anybody else need a $1 bill in this room? And here we go. Yeah. I might be out of them. No. Apparently, I didn't see that. You need one? Jeez. Crowds. Anybody else need a $1 bill? It probably works. You know, I just like $1 bills. Does everybody have a $1 bill? Okay. Well, you have to get it out. We're Easter. Oh, you broke it. Okay. So I want you all to stand up, and you get to sit down when you lose. Okay. So you don't want to lose. It's a very simple game. Okay. So here's what happens. I'm going to just start telling you what numbers are on this $100 bill. If your $1 bill, and the serial number, if your $1 bill, so just find the serial number, where's the serial number of $1 bill? It's this big number right here. If your bill has that number, keep standing. If your bill does not have that number, sit down. Okay? The last person standing takes the $100 home. Now you know why you want to be in the room. Okay. All right. So our first number is a 6. If you have a 6, keep standing. If you don't have a 6, sit down. No, sorry. Wow, nobody has a 6. This is going fast. All right. The next number is a 7. You don't have a 7. The next number is a 5. All right. The next number is a 9. Seriously. Now some of you are excited now. We'll talk more about money and happiness later. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah. But, you know, this just gives you an idea of how to change an environment, how fast you can do it, how simple it is. And I used to do this in a company where we had a lunch, and there were 400 people in the room. And if you show up on time, you could win $100. If you show up late, you couldn't. And it was just a little reward. It works. And you can see kind of excited. Okay, so let's see if this works. Yep. So, first is administrator. So I'm going to pick on this row right here. You have your phone on your computer. Oh, it's really good. Who has a smartphone? They know how to use the timer on. You know how to use the timer? I see people bring their smartphones up, but I don't see what he's saying. You know how to use the timer. So I've not done this before in this format. I've only given book clubs. And I will lose track of time, which I do all the time. So I would, you know, we ought to have a break after, let's say, 50 minutes. Okay? So if you could time 50 minutes. Okay? 50. And maybe, yeah, just 50 when it happens, just raise your hand, jump up and down, go get a sample, whatever it is, and I'll know it's time to wrap up for that. It'll also help me figure out if I'm only on slide 2 and I'm talking too much. Okay, so that's my administrative duties. I'm thinking of sitting down. Here you go. Just so you all sat in the back and I can't see your faces. Yeah. Okay, so I can't reach this. So I'll kind of introduce myself. Maybe I can. It's more excitement outside. David's done $100. So why am I here? Who am I? So my name is Jorgensen, which I said. Most of my life I've been what's now called an entrepreneur. I used to call it just starting little companies. And I have so much trouble spelling that word. I don't see my type. And what I've done most of my life is work with what I call kids. Anybody younger than me is a kid. With their ideas of starting companies. Sometimes it's coming with my ideas, sometimes other people's, and that's really you know, my entire psychology background. Yes, sir. You in the middle.
Yes, can I add on and introduce you to everyone here?
If you'd like to. But apparently.
So I didn't need the lunch.
So now we're gonna now that I gave away the $100, you're gonna come and introduce.
So this also because I see all these students, so I know Jim long, and he used to teach entrepreneurs at the previous university. And Jim graduated from Stanford and later. And he has inspired many companies, and success and fail and everything. And also he has many different lives, received several lives experience. And I just remember can learn many times, can have many different experiences, and he also grandfather for many kids and many grandchildren. So he experienced all these different kinds of life. And he has the privilege to write the happiness because of the different and we would like to share that. That's why we are here, and that's why I invite him. And he's very popular on this one. He has 16,000 followers on Facebook. So let's welcome him.
Okay. These are my notes. So I got the book in case you want to see it. If you don't like the title, I came up with it. If you don't like the design of the book, I came up with it. Okay, it costs nothing. My favorite thing. But I wrote that. I've been trying to write it. I was telling earlier. I've been trying to write it for 5 years, and I'm trying to write it as a nonfiction story. But it turns out I can't write nonfiction. I'm terrible at it. And so I made up a story, and I put all my ideas in a made-up fake family story. And I don't think anybody's really look up with me read it. You read it, and you were on page 29 or something.
I'm in 29%.
In the Kindle.
29.
Yeah. And previous to this little lecture, I've only done book clubs, so everybody else has always read me, always just asked me about characters, which makes my life really easy. But we're not going to do that this time. We're just going to tell stories around some slides and key ideas. I'd like it to be fairly interactive if it can, which is difficult because I don't know anybody. And I'm not a teacher by nature, so it makes it more difficult. A little bit more about me. I grew up in Wisconsin, in the middle of the country, came to California for graduate school, and it was sunny out here, so I stayed. When people ask about children, and I spent a lot of time thinking about children, where a lot of this book came from. There's the easy answer and the hard answer. I have helped raise 9 children. 9 children. Only 3 of them are genetically mine. The others, I had a second wife who had 2 kids, and I had 4 or 5 when I met them. And I now have a third wife who has 1. So that gets you to 6. And I had 3 foster boys. Youngest, there were 8 boys and 1 girl. So I'm really good with boys. And my daughter, she was, the little darling. And I have the 3 foster boys. Youngest is 21. So you guys are older than my youngest. And I do have 4 grandchildren. And I wrote the book to give my grandchildren the ideas that I have that my kids will never read. Okay? So with that, let's move on. What did I do there? Okay, just give a couple slides there. This is slide we were on. Okay. So, how many of you have ever watched an elementary school playground? Elementary school playground, you ever look at the kids, recess time, running around, having a good time. So watch kids sometime. Okay, I know you since you're studying here, you have a lot of interest in this area, but one of the things that always sort of surprised me was how easily happy children are. And with my grandchildren, they don't seem to have any difficulty laughing, smiling, and having a good time. And then you get to this. Okay? What happened? I don't know what happened. Actually, that's what you guys probably are studying here. Yes, sir?
I think I have an answer to that, actually.
Sure.
Actually, I don't know if anyone agrees, but I would say put ourselves into a cage and come up with an idea of who we're supposed to be. And the child is someone who they just love life, they love everything around them, and they're so excited to experience it. And at some point, I think we conditioned to believe that we're supposed to be a certain thing, and if we are not that thing, then we fail. And we're not good enough, or we need to continue to become more perfect, and that's
That's what students for you.
I think we put ourselves in a cage. Like, you should be doing this, and you're supposed to be here, you're supposed to be studying this, or in this job.
I think they're probably all true. I kind of, my little version of this is, so what happened is society, culture, whether it's personally driven or just outside, kind of teaches you how not to be happy. and it gets in the way between you and your happiness. So my theory for my grandchildren is that, you know, they're inherently happy. All of you are inherently happy. Okay, it's just things are getting in between you and your happiness. What your point was, and that's basically my little premise on this. You know, was that it's you know, it's not that you're born unhappy and you need to learn how to be happy. It's the other way around. You're born happy and you have to learn how not to be unhappy. And that's what I wrote about. Okay, so some of the stuff I skipped over in the introduction of myself, since Liz took over, now she's out of the room, we can say anything is my college education is in business. I started out as an accountant. I'm a numbers person. I love numbers, I love data. I have no data behind this book. I'll just have it later. Most of you probably know it. But, and my favorite thing in dealing with human beings and numbers is this. It's developer. So, does anybody think they have a good definition of developer? I'd be happy to. Nobody? Pardon? Distribution. Right. So, I use this all the time. I use this with my right little. So the people I talk to when I start companies are either MBAs, using standard professors that send them to me, or they're computer science students, same thing, professors that they tend to be 20 to 30 years old. And I'm always pushing this bell curve on them, and I would push it on you. Where in the bell curve, you know, is this activity that you're talking about? So if somebody says, "Oh, commuting is, you know, my commute's terrible," well, how long is your commute? You know, what's the average commute? Does anybody have any idea what the average commute in the Bay Area is?
45 minutes.
Yeah, somewhere. I think it's an hour. You can probably, if somebody's got a phone, they can get it for it. But you know, and it's an enormous amount of time. By the way, that's each way. And lots of the behavior when you start to think about, you know, what's going on. Like, how happy should I be? How many days in a month? Where do they fit? So we're going to go through this, and you'll hear me yell the bell curve. I put it as an early slide because I just wanted people to know that, you know, basically, the way this works is, you know, in between here and here, it's 70% of the people. Okay, so if you're like creating a product, you're like a little bright MBA, you're creating a product, and you want people to buy it. You got to know, well, who are talking? You know, are you really talking to these people? And if you are, how many are there? Okay, and constantly when you're thinking of, when you go through this, you know, where does this apply? There may be one of my ideas. You say, "Oh, that's perfect for me. That is so right on the brain. That probably means you over here." But you could just as easily be, that makes no sense to me. That's okay. None of these things that we're going to talk about today are universal. Very little in life is universal. Okay? So I just wanted to be able to have some idea of what the bell curve is. Because sometimes when I talk to people about it, especially at book clubs, I get this point stare, and it scares me. Okay? And I'm going to use it again. Okay. So you can people do this all the time. I'm so happy I see people who actually know what they do. Because how happy are you? Really? That's sort of a personal question. You know, if you sit and talk to people, which I do now, and so you can be happy compared to other people. That's what this is. In other words, if you're sitting in a room, this room, for example, where do you think you are? And why do you think you're there? It's not a question I want you to spread out, but it must be at some point in your life, ask yourself, you know, how am I? By the way, it may be given your upbringing, your environment, and everything else, you should be giving yourself an A+. Because remember, where on that, who are you comparing yourself to? This is why I use this bell curve. Let's see if I go slow enough. If you're in a room full of people who are self-actuated, they're so in tune with everything, and you grade yourself compared to them, you're going to be sitting there with that. But that's not your peer group. Okay? Compare yourself to people in your situation. So when you start doing these comparisons, don't take it. Don't compare yourself to the wrong group. Okay. My last thing on the bell curve, and maybe it'll never come up again, is this slide. And this, I just, it was fun because I was looking for a picture of a bell curve, and I saw this one, and I just had to use it. So the purpose of the book I wrote, or this workout, is to move the number of hours you're happy a month from the orange to the yellow. Okay, that's all it is. I mean, bell curve can mean anything you want. Number of hours of feeling content with yourself. Okay, and so no matter where you are, that's why it's one of the things I love about the book is no matter what state of your happiness, the whole idea of this workshop, the whole idea of the book, probably the whole idea of what you guys are studying, is just to move people from orange to the yellow. All it is. How many hours a day, how many minutes, whatever it is, are they content? Okay. So, next slide. I think this probably would be the most interestingly difficult group to talk to. I'll ever talk to you about this. Because guys know too much. So in my book, and I did this on myself without any reading. Remember, I've done no reading on the. I wrote the book before I did very much reading on what happiness is all about. But in my own mind, there's just two kinds of happiness. And I gave them my own definition. Okay. So, situational happiness, and then something I just made up entitled true happiness. So, situational happiness, everybody sort of understands. You win the lottery, you're really happy. The lady with $100 had the biggest smile you've ever seen. Okay, the rest of you look kind of poor. But we kind of all know situational happiness. But the problem with situational happiness, I'll get into later. But it's difficult to sustain. And we got cheap next. So I've started lots of companies, as mentioned. One of the companies I started called Celebrity Management. Down in Los Angeles, we had lots of celebrities. And because we were managing only successful celebrities, they not only were famous, but they were rich. And I remember one day, one of my bookkeepers looked really kind of sad, and I said, "What's your problem?" And she said, I'll just use the person. We had a client named John. His MasterCard bill every month was bigger than her annual salary. And she was feeling discouraged about that. Not for John, he had the money, but for herself. And so we were kind of sitting there, kind of looking about it, feeling bad about ourselves. I said, you know our clients. And I said, yeah. I said, and you have a bunch of friends, right? Oh, yeah, I have a bunch of friends. I said, so which group you think is happier? Our clients or your friends? And she was a fairly bright person who wouldn't take that question on the surface, but who actually thought about it, and she thought about it for a little bit. She said, they're pretty much the same. I said, that's what I would guess. It turns out that, situational happiness, being famous, always having people balance great, comes with as many problems as just there. So we'll talk more about that. True happiness is something I guess you're going to spend a lot of time learning about. But one of the ways that it strikes me is you're able to be content, happy, enjoy just about any environment. So you take the situational part of it and you neutralize it. One of the ways I try to get people to think about it is situational happiness is like waves crashing on the beach. They're huge, they're exciting, you surf in, you land on the ground and go. Okay? And true happiness is more like the high coming. And it builds, it builds a whole foundation. And by the way, the waves just ride on top of it. So you got rising tide and nice waves. You surf, that's a good moment to have. Hopefully, unlike the tide, it doesn't recede and the moon comes up. But it, it stays up there. You learn how to keep your true happiness at a fairly high. We're going to hear the notes now. So, one thing that I find disappointing or whatever, something that you can change, is now that I've been picking up situational happiness as being difficult to sustain because of the ways we crash. If you look at your day and look at other people's days, don't look at yourself right now, how much time do you think they spend on situational happiness versus true happiness? They're always trying to make a little more money. They're always trying to go on the fancier roller coaster. This. And how much time do they actually spend, reading something that might, give them? It's amazing how much time we spend on situational happiness. And I think that's something that, as an individual, you have control over. The first of the real slides, okay? So, when I wrote this book, the actual subtitle of the book is Russ Morrison's Keys to Happiness, okay? I hate to disappoint, Russ Morrison doesn't exist, okay? I just made this up. But the keys are listed, actually. Actually, there's a website called The Happy Class. You can go on it. It has there's a little PDF you can read the keys. Okay? You don't have to buy the book. Accepting reality is something that I think really will improve people's happiness. The more you fight against what's really true, we'll go into more details about it. The more you fight against it, the more you imagine, what it should be, could be, might be, the harder it is to get to true happiness. That you boy with a girlfriend, he's not looking at you, okay? And if he's not looking at you, he's not going to look at you tomorrow. Move on. But getting to reality is highly underrated. And you look at your own lives. Again, we're told to by a 45-minute commute. If it really takes 45 minutes, it takes 45 minutes. It's not going to work. Okay? So you got to accept it, deal with it, and what I do is you learn to enjoy it. So I have pancreatitis. Russ has pancreatitis. I have a disease called pancreatitis. I have a version of it called acute chronic idiopathic pancreatitis. Basically means idiopathic means they have no idea why I have it. This is after Stanford, spent 6 years. Acute means that when I get an attack, it is really painful. I had a woman a few years ago who has the same disease. She said it's just slightly more painful in childhood. I can tell you first. And chronic means that it comes up on occasion. And there's no warning, there's nothing I do. And my pancreatic theorist at Stanford said, there's really nothing you can do. He said, there's one thing I'd like you to do. He said, alcohol is a known toxin for the pancreas. So he said, stop drinking alcohol. This was about 6, 7 years. He said, it won't solve the problem. But we know it's bad for your pancreas. You already have a bad pancreas. You want it My children were delighted with that news because they got the wine cellar. But I immediately stopped. Okay. I have this disease. I was teasing my wife, she doesn't think it's funny, that I now know that if I live long enough, I will die from pancreatitis. Okay. But that means that I'm going to die of something else before. And, you know, it's fatal. I forgot to mention that it's fatal. It's fatal. I'm fine. Okay. I mean, except for reality. I mean, I did whatever I could to you know, I went to Stanford, I got the right doctors, I did all the testimony, there's nothing I can do about this. I'm well over that. And so how does this affect me? Yeah, it really doesn't, except the ultimate. And I don't really miss that, except if I'm in Italy and I'm romantic setting. It's really a glass of wine. I have learned to, I drink my Diet Coke in a wine glass whenever it makes me feel good, you know. Hey, I can party, right? But it's, you know, just a good example of you know, whatever it is, it's okay. So, you know, I can't sing. That I took many years ago. I can't spell, thank God there's a whole lot of list of things I've had to accept. And accepting yourself as you are, as the world is, really helpful to you know, having happiness. So when you fight against reality, you know, you're spending so much energy, and then you get so disappointed because, it didn't happen. Well, of course it wasn't going to happen. I do this with my little entrepreneurs all the time when they imagine. I did one yesterday. These guys have this idea and they think it's going to be viral and everybody's going to want it. They're all excited. And then they start telling about this video they're going to make. And the video is going to go viral. I said, why is it going to go viral? It's going to be so funny. I said, you know how many funny videos are made every day? I said, we have no idea. There's got to be tens and thousands of funny videos. You know how many go viral every day? What makes it think you? Guys, reality is, your video, nobody's ever going to see. Give me another idea of how this is going to work, because that is not reality. Okay? And so it's not just about happiness; it's just everything in life. You know, you accept. That doesn't mean you give up on the project. I didn't tell them to give up. They have a great idea. They just better not think that they're 1 in a million chance viral. They shouldn't bet everything in that one video. Okay. See if I can do that. Oh, I gotta say this one. This is from my great grandmother. I had a German great grandmother, and according to my mother, according to my mother, my great grandmother was good at this, and I always knew Germans. Since I'm part German, I could say anything I want about Germans. Germans are very good about accepting reality. So, my great grandmother used to say to my mother, when my mother wanted something and she wished this was true, she said, if wishes were horses, the beggars would run. And it's always stuck with me that is what happens if you're not paying attention. Okay. So that's one of my great keys. Next one. Okay. So, forgive, forget, move on. Probably sounds like something that you've heard before, and maybe you have, I don't know. My version of it is slightly different. So mine starts with, you know, forgive. For me, when you think about forgive, the very first thing you should do is forgive yourself. Okay? So if you were the person who caused the problem, forgive yourself. If you're the victim, forgive yourself for being the victim. You know, if you can. Okay? After you've forgiven yourself, then you can think about it. Much easier once you forgive yourself to forgive someone else. Okay? You know, if you have a bad relationship, okay, forgive yourself for getting into it before you forgive the other person for being a jerk. All right? Forget. I can give you one help to forget. Forget happens with time. Everybody knows that. The other way to forget is tricking your mind. It's something that you practice, I think you can do. So whenever I find myself not forgetting something that I really want to forget, I just think about something else. Really not that hard. And so, and I have, because I like to write, usually now, I've done this for 10 years, right? And I write fiction. So I just think of one of my characters. And suddenly I'm not thinking about the problem. I'm just trying to forget. Little corny, little creepy, but it works for me. Move on. So, actually, the only thing you have to remember on this is move on. Okay? It is 10 times more than important than happiness in my life. To you'll forgive yourself eventually. You'll forgive the other person eventually. You'll learn how to forget eventually. But very shortly after something happens, life is still going on, and you have a life to live, and if you sit, and lots of times this forgive, forget, and move on is about grieving. Something bad has happened. Usually happy moments you're trying not to forgive, forget. Okay. So, go ahead and grieve, but don't wallow in it. Don't victimize yourself in it. Move on to it. If you can't forgive yourself just yet, still move on. Go back and forgive yourself. Go and if you lost a job, okay, what are you going to do? Accept reality. The job's over. Okay, that's why the slides are in that order. So it's one. No begging is going to get it back. You're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and think, oh my God, I'm going to get training. Okay, I lost the job. Okay. How bad of an employee were you? I don't know. You can forgive yourself. Your boss is a jerk. You'll forgive her. She'll, at some point, it'll be okay. It'll be funny stories. You can tell your friends about the jerk boss you have. Okay. At some point, you can't remember. I had a this was my unbelievable job offer. So I had been out of business. I got an MBA at Stanford, and I worked for 5 years. And I got this. I was living up here, and I got this unbelievable emphasis on the UN unbelievable job offer. Oh man, I had been so I went into the sports business when I graduated from Stanford. And I bet you people, half the people, who in this room knows who Billie Jean King is? If you know who she is. Wow. Okay. So if any of you ever watched the U.S. Open tennis, and they tell you where they're playing at the Billie Jean King Tennis Center in New York City. At one time, she was one of the most famous athletes in America. She was my business partner at the time. And one of the things we did while we were partners was we had a TV show called the Billie Jean King TV show, which had the misfortune of lasting all its 3 shows. But the guy that produced it owned a television production company, and Billie Jean King and her husband were getting a divorce. I was the third partner, business thing, so I was going to have to find a new job. He knew about that, and he said, "Hey, why don't you move down to LA and run my company? I'll give you half my company. I'll move out of the office because I'm hard to deal with, and you can run it." And my ego was so big, I thought, "Oh, great, yeah, I can do this. Perfect." To cut the story short, I moved out of Los Angeles. I sold my house here, I'm there, down, over there, and after 2 weeks, I quit. It turned out that he was not just difficult, he was actually, he was a diabetic and he wasn't taking his medicine. He had lots of problems. One time, the controller and I tackled him in my office as he was racing. He had been a Marine drill sergeant, racing as hard as he could to jump out the window. And we were in the penthouse on the Miracle Mile in LA. Except reality, I had made a really dumb mistake. Okay. and I needed to, move on. So, I quickly forgot forgiving myself. I'm a master at forgiving myself. Okay, so it's practice. You get good at it. Forgiving the woman who told me that this was a good job and he's a wonderful guy. I did it by calling her up and telling her she needed to hire me for something. Forget. It's one of my favorite stories if I remember. Okay. So I've forgotten it as a problem. I just remembered it. I do remember, now that I'm thinking about it, it happened just before my 30th birthday. And which was the only birthday I've ever had before. And my brother-in-law, to my birthday party, I was unemployed. I had the national debt for a mortgage on my house. I had taken every last dollar of my savings on the down payment. And my wife, didn't have. So this was not what you call one of those bright, shiny 30th birthday. It was, believe it or not, that was moving on. I called up Billie Jean King and said, hey, I have a great idea. I know who can be your new business manager. So who's that? I said, me. She said, oh, what happened? Okay, I told her. And that was the start of my celebrity management company. Turned out to be a really delightful 5 years of my life. I had a great time. All kinds of wonderful people. I started, it grew quickly and a lot of luck. But I moved on, within a week I had 3 clients. I found an office. And, what bad mistake. Yeah. I hated that as a reality. And by the way, I can tell these stories forever, so if you want, I want to. My wife says, let them talk. We have some time for them. I forgot anything else. Probably. Okay. What's my time? 15 minutes more. Okay. Because the next one is, we'll go for it. The box. You were talking about being in the box. So you'll relate really well. So my next 3 slides are about something I think is another area people really struggle with and makes them very unhappy. That's making decisions, especially when it's tough. So I'm going to start with the hardest decisions, which, by the way, is the first little thing I do whenever I get to a problem. I try to take the hardest thing first. Yeah. So I tell this to my startup kids, but I think it's good in life. You want to fail quickly. Okay. So in anything you do, you want to fail as fast as you can. Because if you're going to fail anyway, why would you want to waste your life on something that's going to fail eventually? You want to fail now. And if you think about that, and by the way, another German honest guy who trained me in how to do this. If you're in business, if you want to fail quickly in business, you go after the hardest thing you can. Because why would you not go after the hardest thing first? Let's spend 2 years doing all the easy stuff, and then we'll ask the tough question. No, let's start with the tough question, and if we can't get that done, we'll have to spend 2 years. So this is how to deal with the tough. The toughest questions are, should I get out of this marriage? Should I quit this job? Should I move here? There's 20 million of these in everybody's life, okay? They come up, they go away, they come up, they go away, they come up, they go away. Some people can drag them on for centuries trying to make a decision, okay? And when you've got one of these hanging over your head, it's really hard to be happy because, it's hard to forget. I mean, you haven't made it, nothing's happening. You just, I'll talk about worry, but it just eats you up, these decisions. So, one time I read something which I really did a box. I take any problem and I put it in a box. Well, so let's just say we're in a bad relationship. Well, we don't know we're in a bad relationship. If we were in a bad relationship, it would be an easy decision. So what we are in is a relationship that seems bad or not as good as we'd like, but we can't figure out what we should do. Should we leave or should we stay? Okay. That's the dilemma. Like, the box is only for, box takes some time, okay? So it's only for real problems that you can't. So we have this bad relationship. And in the box, what you do is you say, well, what's it going to cost me to get out of this? Make a change. I'm not talking about what you're going to go yet. Just what's it going to cost me? So bad relationship. It's his apartment. I'm going to have to find a place to live. 95% of my social life are his friends. They're going to stay his friends. You're going to have this whole list of costs, okay, whatever they are, and be fair to yourself. Don't overplay them. Don't underplay them. Be honest with yourself. Accept reality. Okay. Don't make it worse than it is. Don't make it. So get those on one side of the scale. Okay, and just add them up. Write them down. You know, I usually write them down. And okay, so now we know what it's going to cost to get out of the box. That's the price. Now we're out. Pretend you're out. How's life? What do you do? Well, let's see, we're in the relationship story. So, wrong monster. Okay. Maybe you're a monster. Oh, I'm not a monster. I mean, you know, maybe you decide, you know what, actually, I think I'll do travel for 6 months. Bad relationship, bad this, bad that, whatever it is. Okay, condition yourself out. Don't sugarcoat it. You didn't meet the perfect guy. You know, he's not waiting at Starbucks for you. Okay? But in reality, what's your life going to be like? How does it feel? Okay? Take your time over there. Enjoy it. It's probably fun. Got that, right? It may turn out, you know, as this thing sinks, you're going, well, yeah, now I'm out of the dates and I hated that. Okay. Now you have these two things. Well, is there a winner? Okay. And you'd be surprised how often going through this process. Okay. And lots of times the winners change. But if the winner isn't changed, if the winners stay, then stop thinking about it. Okay. You know. Then the next day the jerk does another jerky thing, don't say, oh, I gotta think about it. No, you just went through the whole thing. Okay. You took your time, take your time, go through it. You know, your job, you know, this idea, that idea, whatever it is. And when you make that decision, you're done. Don't second guess it. You took your time. You know? And by the way, if you stay, 6 months later, you can, you know, something new happens and you can do it again. But this is not easy to do. Okay, this takes time. This has nothing to do with the movie I just saw. The next kind of decision. These are just as difficult, but they're not quite the same. The box doesn't work for these. These are things like you have multiple options, and you know you're having no way to get your hands around it. I got this from a guy named Hap Club. When I wrote my slide notes, I thought, where did that come from? I remember the day I got it. I got it 4 years ago, sitting at a lunch presentation from a guy named Hap Club. Hap was the unofficial founder of North Face. There is a guy that founded Chris Casey, something like that. And he had 2 stores. Hap had gone to Stanford Business School, graduated, and he bought the 2 stores and bought North Face and turned it into North Face. This guy went on, you know, actually, the guy that sold North Face, sold North Face, he and his wife frowned around for 6 months and then invented a spree. So, you know, so the guy that started North Face and sold it after 2 stores went off and started a spree. You know? So, anyway, was at Stanford, and he was saying, these were good times. He said, you're going to get multiple job offers. Okay? How do you decide what job to take? Okay? So he said, you can do this. And I actually made one up. This is not what I had. This was my matrix. It's not to be memorized, most of job offers. But I put it there so you can get an idea of how you use the matrix. So, matrix is real simple. You list the opportunities down here. Okay? And then you list all of the things that would necessarily have something to do with making a decision. Okay? That's like picking a city. By the way, you can use this for, it's a little robust. You can pick it for, I only get to go on 1 2-week vacation every year. Where do I want to go? You can use this all the time. What you do is you have a thing called category value. This is the key difference in this idea. So in this one, location, you start with, you can pick any topic. I pick location, and I just picked a number 40. Location is worth 40 points, okay? Then I said starting salary. Starting salary is worth what compared to location? How important is starting salary to location? Okay? To me, it was like 25%. So if location was 40 points, starting salary was only 10. Okay? What was raises and bonuses worth? They were another 10. And I just, job content, how does that compare to location? How important was what I was doing based on? And you can see by the way, living in Northern California was performance, which is true. And you list all of the major categories. Okay? And then in each one, you just score them. So I'll do one for you. So it turns out that I wanted to live in the Bay Area since I've gone to school for 2 years, and I had lots of friends now. And these 2 jobs were in the Bay Area, so they got the 40 points. Rockwell was in Los Angeles, where my in-laws were. It should probably be -5, but actually it was 30 because of those. Chase and American Express were in New York City. I thought New York was cool, but only half the school was San Francisco. That's all I had to compare. So you break this, and then this was Boston. Was in Boston, and that was in Minneapolis. I was like going home to Wisconsin. I didn't want to do it. And then you rate it all in different factors, and at the end of the day, just to finish the story for you, I end up with the winner. You can always pick something else, but you'll be cheating yourself. It turned out to be a little thing called Tennis America, which was how I got started with small company. So if you ever find yourself with a little complex problem and you can't figure out, and it's worth the time. This isn't, this is not for your everyday decision making. Okay? This is for these, important decisions that don't fit in the box. Okay. And then last thing is, and then we can take a break if that's okay. So here's how I stay happy every day. Because you have to make 20 million decisions every day. Decisions really make people unhappy. So for really important decisions, which don't happen very often, I either use the box or the matrix, and I don't do them very often. So those problems don't come up. The next things are repetitive things. Like how you get to work every day. Okay. If I had to come to work every day, I figured out the shortest route. Okay. What else do you do every day? You just, whatever is repetitive enough that you want to think about a solution. Okay. Good. All right. And then there's everything else. And my instruction to myself on everything else is don't waste your time. What do you want for dinner? That's in everything else. Have you ever watched people at a menu at a restaurant? I mean, some people, I cannot believe how much mental pain. Oh my God, am I going to have the roasted chicken? Really, it's dinner. Hello. Okay. I mean, if you're on a diet, you have some problems, yeah, of course, that's so repetitive. But when you go to a restaurant, are you going to have McDonald's? No. It's important, And that's like, That is such a high percentage of your decision making. It does matter. Oh, of course it matters. What movie you go see, it matters. You have a good movie. But you should be able to decide like that. Okay? I mean, my wife and I, when we go to movies, she says, what do you want to go see? Anything. What? You know, I heard these 3 movies are good. No. I'm going to become the movie critic of the century? No. Am I going to spend 8 hours researching what, it's going to like, no, you're going to make a decision, get limited information, make a decision, and make it fast. Okay? And the stress level, and by the way, you can have some fun. I mean, I have a great time in life. And one of the things you can watch somebody struggling, you think, oh, ladies, gotta just help you out here a little bit, I mean, and you'll see it when you walk around. You'll see how these kinds of things just sap away everybody, everyday stuff. Okay, so it's okay to have a 10-minute break, yes. I wonder if I can express the light. Okay, no preview. We'll have to guess what's next. And I'll see you in 20 after that class. Okay. By the way, I'll have to leave your shoes in. I do have the shoe story. That thing just stays on.
Yeah.
You're gonna post this.
Happy New Year.
Oh, I don't lean over. Yeah.
I just didn't take them off. I'll put them on. My Christmas. Are you happy to meet somebody?
No, she said I smell it.
Of course you do. Where do you keep it?
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet
Awesome.
It's all small.
Hey, right on. I was asking because you both have these like awesome shirts on. Like, where'd you go? What's the question? How's it going? It was awesome. It was awesome. My dad met me to my cousin's wedding. I just got back.
I know.
I know, it's just happened now. It's me. So my sleep is still all messed up. I fell asleep like yesterday. I woke up at 2
there. Okay, cool.
Like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. So yes, it was amazing. Mostly the north. So we went to Delhi. Top of my train to Agra, where the Taj Mahal is. Agra, we went to Varanasi, which is the sacred site of the Hindu religion, that's all religion, which die or speak. Very intense city.
we wanted to go to Bodh Gaya. That's where I really wanted to visit. I practice Buddhism and attachments. It's the birthplace of Buddhism, it's where the Bodhi tree is. We didn't make it there because of train delays, so we had to backtrack back to Varanasi. From Varanasi, we then went to Karahajo, which is where there's all these central temples, with carvings of like king all over them. Really cool temples. From there, we took an overnight bus to Nepal. We were there for a couple days, and we flew to Mumbai. So, like, we flew into the country, and we kind of went to New Delhi, and then we went back.
And there's like,
There's way too much to see. Like, it's a huge country. I could have spent several weeks in a place that we only spent today. I guess I'm most struck by the poverty. The poverty was pretty intense. And I've traveled through before and experienced that, but it was like, it just, you know, like, but it was really incredible. I was really blessed to go with studying. She's one of my oldest friends, and her takes she's Indian. Her family still lives there. Her mom, dad, sister. Her sister studied in the States and moved back. But she lives in New York. We met at Holy College, and then she went to get a master's at NYU. And she still lives in New York teaching. So her husband is American. So he looks so awkward. She came to the wedding because he's like, so that was cool. It was a lot of fun. It was international. Like, all of the guests were small people. It's just like the group of people that they brought together was incredible. Our whole travel itinerary is climbing around temples. So that's really, no, I've had this for years. I've had this since I was 18. No, I think yes. Yeah, that's from the menu ceremony. It's fading now. But my friend, yes, it's one of the traditional ceremonies. It's the menu ceremony. Where, like, you know, my friend who's the bride had like everything covered up to here, as well as her feet up to her knee out. What's really cool that I never knew before was that they hide the husband's name in it. So they put like one letter here, one letter here, one letter here. And my friend was like, yeah, when she was showing us when they were doing it, she was like, well, you know, the whole thing is that you have to put my name in order to seal the deal. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So like, I was hoping oh, is it that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I need to get going. I'm just as a very novel, in their phone, yeah. Financial stuff. Like, I'm going to point out, I have to get on financial I'm actually having to make that person and so we're in the process of but once that happens, it's time to hold but before I leave, I'll try to get everybody together. No, my program doesn't have online. what I really wanted to do is start applying for schools out there.
Oh, I know. Great.
And then this past quarter, they changed Sofia substantially more than anything. And then the community position and commissions. And so all of those things combined, it's like, and they're raising my rents. So all of this, like, I just can't do it. I don't think, I can't follow them. So moving back into my dad, it's already school out there, it's at home,
Right.
plus my parents more excited. Because they're like, in the day, this past year, I saw them many times. And so, and it costs $1,000 for a visit. And so, by the time I graduated, I was three now. And I think this is 10. So, like, they kind of miss, my little one will never have a relationship.
No, I see that it doesn't make me move. I guess he's a
And so it took a lot of like humility, in a way it's still feels hard and like, you back to your dad's. Really a lot of processing. Not really not turning it into a real, you're just realizing it as it's just one after another, like everything happened. And my sister got married and moved out. Like all the kids, she had to do this with her sons. And so that opened up 3 bedrooms in my dad's house, and we were very connected and offers to have us students.
And the church is doing all things.
Very fashionable. You take credit for this.
But that's not even. We're here to support you. However you can. Right.
Thank you.
The professor said, hey, I feel like.
Awesome. I would love to. I definitely am already planning to try to get everybody together before the week. I don't know, we don't know when it's going to be because we're having to strike our piece. And so we got to do some kind of mentors. So I'm enrolled in classes. So I might not need to be a older or I need to be a tonight. So it's something. I think if everything goes as planned, I'd be able to sell.
Yeah.
I can do after I write this paper. As an aide.
Oh, well, very good.
Yeah. No, that's the biggest issue is why I want to get out as soon as I can, is that watching all of my peers transfer lives. So I know that you can't really have it. That's why it's really I'm trying to leave as soon as I can because any money I do use this quarter I'm going to make turn because the biggest fear
I'm
I have
negotiating.
I won't have enough money left as far as anything else.
And
Even here, you had mentioned you might not be here. So that was really where I was like,
yeah,
figure out. You were like, go. He had to start over, pretty much.
I mean, before, Ben was in a little better position because they combined classes to give him some, but they still had to start at first.
So I think,
I don't know yet what the lines. They're at Argosy. They're up in Coast Bay, in Argosy. It's kind of right near Cleveland. It's an elevator.
and help you get along.
I've never heard that. There for quite a while. Yeah, it's a, I saw them all 9 years transfer, and it's as one of the bonus systems, and in general, criminal programs in general don't take more than a few minutes, because most of them are and so even if you go to another city and you're transferring to another BCA, they have tap on their security. So it really is check that out.
Yes, sir. What I actually do is I have 2 babies.
Yeah, I don't feel only, you know, I did that. I sent a contact on a lot of so are you considering that as an option? I'm within the range to apply, and I was I had meant to do this before, but I didn't think
You know, that kind of
oh, yeah. I'm gonna get that.
But
yeah, trying to be present to the human, find them, I love it. Take me on the ride. You're just hard to do your work around it.
There you go. Don't get me started on that. Okay. how bad is it? Or conversation, but not talk about that. Hello, and they're like,
Well, my rent, I don't have financial aid. My rent is
okay. For those of you with better conversations, like
Thank you.
you're gonna go. Yeah, you So, we have a new slide up here. This is my introduction to bring you back to the original slides. When I had the old slide up here before the workshop started, somebody commented that money is the root of all evil, which I actually don't believe. But the idea of the $20 bill was to get you to understand a little bit more on what I think the situational happiness problem is. Because if I told you I was giving away $20, you all stand up a little slower, you'd be a little less excited. And so, situational happiness is really a massively deceptive problem. Because when you take that great roller coaster, the next time you go on a roller coaster, it's not as good as the one you remember. By the way, you always remember it better than it was. It's not good. So using that kind of happiness, using money, okay, as your number one way where you deliver yourself happiness, it's a tough road. Okay, and you can do the one of my favorites is the comparison. Well, as long as my house is bigger than my friend's house, I'm happy. But then, of course, there's always something. And you can watch the Boys with the Toys. You can watch all these people compete, with their football teams and and the happiness quotient isn't there. It has nothing to do with that. So in my sports world, there was a called World Team Tennis, which is a tennis league, and as sports leagues go, it was a startup and it wasn't that impressive, but the owners still were not poor. And they were egotists, just sort of like you can imagine the owners of the NFL today. As a matter of fact, two of the NFL owners were in this startup league. That was their start. The guy that owns the Patriots, Bob Pratt, one of the Boston Lobsters. Anyway, they were notoriously bad at showing up for the board meetings. And I was, of course, good at showing up on time. So we passed a rule that the penalty for not showing up was $1,000 a minute. And it didn't work. Guys would show up an hour late and write check for $60,000 like it. That room was no different than this room. Nobody's happy, nobody's unhappy. The celebrity management story I gave you earlier, I can give you dozens of these stories from my life, whether they're famous or not famous. I mentioned Billie Jean King. So we were partners for 5 years. I spent a lot of time with her. And I learned very quickly that when we went out to dinner, that she faced the wall. Because if she didn't face the wall, we weren't going to be able to eat dinner because everybody was bothered. So, this free lunch, the celebrity free lunch, it's not free. It's just different. And so this money and the problem with money is what I was trying to say earlier, the material things. It's the acquisition of money, it's the effort, it's the spending of your life going after it that causes the unhappiness. It's not the money. Money's just there. It's not doing anything. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just there. But when you set it out as a goal, when you set it out as a target, and think, when you get that new house, then I'm going to be happy because I hate this kitchen. You know, I'm going to flip it back and say, that's the kitchen you have, except for jelly. Stop, projecting that I will be happy when I get to the kitchen. You know, that's just money. The new kitchen and money are the same thing, by the way. Or your vacation is the same thing. I have a thing, since I've raised always a kid, one of my things that I'm really children are raising children is I took each of my kids on a parent-child 2-week vacation. And I took my kids to Rome and London. Well, anybody can have fun in Rome and London. I said, no, I can understand. I could have taken them to the President Bakers. It's all about spending 2 weeks with your kid because after the 3rd day, it's not a parent-child, it's just traveling companion. And the respect to go back. I mean, my son, when I tucked me in bed as a 12-year-old, when was he going to tuck his dad in bed? I fell asleep. This whole idea of being able to, use the money to do that is totally crazy. By the way, a little more time, belittling money for you. So the clients and any rich person, the minute you have money or fame, is the last day you get an honest opinion. That's not true. But you don't know. That person who just came up to you, do they actually like you or they just like you because you're stuff? You won't know. And you'll never know. You'll never know again. You gave that, you gave. You and I, we're not famous. So when somebody actually likes us, well, they like me. Okay. When you're village king and somebody's nice to you, it means nothing. That whole thing just dropped away. It's there right now. It's okay. Okay. But when you have all of these things, you project the new kitchen is going to be cool. The new kitchen is maybe it is cool. But the 3rd day you have it, it's like this $20. To make her happy, I'm happy. For 200 she stands, okay? But for $100, I should already have 100. What? So that's a problem.
Jeff, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you know any statistic about the level of income that you get before you're actually no longer chasing money?
Well, there is it's a good question. Let me flip it slightly. Obviously, if you're living in an unsafe location, you can't feed your kids, you're starving, and it's more difficult to ignore going after money. But, it doesn't take too much to get to the level of that. Yes? Yeah, you can answer.
It's 70,000 is the level at normal increase in happiness. And then there's also a correlation if you have a lack of money, so for we just said about poverty, that can equal unhappiness, but having a substantial increase in your finances never actually equals happiness. So it will never give you happiness, if that makes sense. It may keep you from being miserable.
I was just talking about statistics.
Oh, statistics. Yeah.
Okay. So, by the way, there was a study recently that I got a kick out of, which was on health. It determined that people who are unhappy, or people with true happiness, their immune system actually works better. The next group would be unhappy people. The truth of the lowest immune system are the people who are chasing material happiness. That the people who are going after material happiness, even though they were happy because they had the material things, actually had their immune system wasn't using. I have no idea. The next study was for something different. I had one more story. I'm going to go a little younger now. I'm going to get some more hands on this one. You won't know his name probably. Does anybody actually know who John Hughes is? With a hand and a half. That's not a hand, that's just chewing your fingers. Okay. So, why do you know who John Hughes is? Can you name one movie he's made?
Ferris Bueller.
That's good. Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah.
He's more famous for doing Home Alone more than a cat. Did anybody watch Christmas Vacation on TV? So he wrote all the vacation movies. He wrote Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. He actually wrote the Beethoven movies. He wrote so many movies that he wrote, I don't know, about 20 movies, a dozen movies under other names. He was one of my favorite clients. He became praised. And he was a very interesting guy. I'll give you two stories on him. One was, I met him when he done his first movie, and was trying to get some money in. And one day I called him up and I said, John, your bank account just hit $1 million. And I was all excited to tell him because I'm the account, right? And his reaction was, oh my God. He said, can you do me a favor? And I said, what's that? He said, well, what's the federal insurance rate? And I said, for bank accounts? He said, I think it's back then, it was $100,000 in any account. He said, can you have somebody go open 10 $100,000 accounts in 10 different banks so that I stay insured? He was panicked with the federal government. I mean, the banks were all going to fold. That was the first thing. But the opposite of that, and we actually did it, by the way. We had the staff go out and open bank accounts up, so John's money was the other thing about John was that sort of almost the flip side of worrying about the money was the slogan that he kind of says, when it comes to owning things, is to make sure you own things so that they don't own you. And you'll get one of my favorites is the guy who drives the car into the safety parking lot, but he's so afraid that it's going to get dinged. So he parks, so it takes him an hour to get to the place. If it's, you know, I mean, if you're out one time with your fancy car and you worry about it, I got it. But if you're letting that thing, whatever it is, own you, it's the worst one are, you know, houses, especially around here, where you buy a house, can't afford it. Now you're in a job you hate, and now you're in the box. What am I going to do? You know, so try to make sure that the things that the material things in your life don't control your life. But that you control it. You own it. The lawnmowers, you know, get rid of it. That's got to be your mental attitude. Okay. So, one of the things I've discovered in life is that it's really helpful living happiness to have at least one truth. You can have more, but at least one truth. My definition of when I say of a true friend, that's basically somebody you can say or do almost anything to. They are there. They're the thick and thin friend. They don't have to be somebody you call every day. Not you don't call them at all. As a matter of fact, what the slide is telling you is, and actually that dog, that's Susie the Pug. Susie the Pug died a few years ago. Susie the Pug was my best friend for about 18 months. Okay. Great thing about having a dog as a best friend is they never argue. They listen, they don't abandon. I mean, they're like a perfect friend. It's better to have a human, okay? But you know, if you're temporarily without that best friend, something happens to them, they, you know, trust me, this works. It doesn't get going. It works. In my book, it's a horse, by the way. The idea of having this someone, something that you can talk to is really important for you. I know people talk about writing journals and then talking to yourself. Talking to the dog isn't a whole lot, except the adoring eyes, And then, those are great kids. So, time-wise, I could have an exercise in here where I say you to list all the good friends, but I think we should just do that later. But try, if you remember, if you have a homework assignment for yourself, have some fun. Start with as early memory as you can, and list all the true friends you have. Okay? And I think you'll enjoy it. So the reason I say that is a few years ago I started going back to my hometown, which is Racine, Wisconsin. And I went, my sister used to live there, and I went to see her, but I discovered one true friend when I was 10 years old. And he still lives in the city. So we went out to play golf, had a good time. Well, it's now 6 or 7 years later. I go every year. I didn't go for 20 years. I go every year. The group is up to 15 people now. We hang out, and it was a great discovery in that when you're in school and you have lots of choices of friends, people you hang out with, from elementary school or middle school or high school, are actually people who probably get along. Remember, I talked about bell curve. For those of you who know from high school, okay. But it's amazingly enjoyable to see how you can relate to these people. Now, I could just call them on the phone, but don't lose those friends. That's why I'm saying to list them. And when you list them, I think you'll have fun remembering them. And then the next step is, if there's one you want to contact, and maybe you already are in, and it's about it. But these are really important people. They're really important to your happiness. It's good to have one, when they're temporarily you're not around. So, okay, so I don't know if you all know Heather. Oh, wait, Heather. So I wrote this book. Liz reads it and says I ought to do this workshop with book like that. Some other people get excited about the book. I get fan mail. It's very odd for me. I'm a writer, as you can tell. I really know nothing about studying happiness other than this book. And the social media pages have grown. You'll notice that there's a publisher as of yesterday. New publisher of the book. So what Heather is working, starting I guess Monday on the Happy Class project, such as it is. So I asked her if she wanted to give one of the keys, I guess, of happiness. And you gotta wonder about a woman. You have sense of humor. You gotta wonder about a woman who picks happiness and death. That's the slide she wants to do. Okay. This is the happy class. She picks happiness and death. So introduce yourself as you want to. I'll do it. I told you to be a cemetery, right?
I am I picked death and happiness because death and happiness, I think, are a lot of people think of death as a really negative thing, and death can be, to me, a very inspiring thing. And I'll start with using a quote that actually a fellow friend and teacher here at Sofia, Brendan Thompson, I don't know if you know him, shared with me one time, and I really, really loved this story, and I was probably totally going to watch it, so I'm sorry. But it's a very ancient Buddhist story, and this Buddhist has a friend that's dying, and the friend doesn't have long enough for the Buddhist to make a plane ride all the way before the friend's going to pass. And so he calls the friend up and he said, "Ever for even a moment believe you're not going to die." And when I read that, he had wrote it in one of our forums, there was a sense of relief, actually, and then an inspiration I got from it. It wasn't a depressing thought to me. It wasn't like, I'm gonna die, what? It was more like, oh yeah, I'm gonna die, I better get started. Like I better, who knows what's gonna happen after this? I know I'm alive right now, and that's pretty much all I'm guaranteed. And one day, I'm gonna die, and so are all of you. And if you haven't thought about that, take a minute, think about the fact that you are going to die one day. The way that Russ conveys it in the book is basically you're going to die, so you should get over it. Which I love. I mean, it's kind of just simplistic, But I also think it can be used in a really inspirational way. So I'm going to ask you all to do a little exercise right now. Sorry. But if you don't mind taking a few minutes, I'd like to invite you to think about considering, since you know you're going to die one day, what would be 1 or 10 things in your life that you would like to change or do differently? Thinking about the fact that you know you're going to die one day. You can either write it down or think in your head or write a list on whatever's handy. I'll give you like 5 minutes to do that, and then I'll go on. I'm going to sit there.
Do you need a pen and paper?
I have paper that I can run over.
I'll go get some pens.
Anybody need paper and pen?
Does anyone use it?
Paper? Okay, so hopefully you have these panels that you wrote down. You can take that home, finish the list. But one thing that I find is when you think about it that way, I don't find that you ever think, oh, I wish I wasn't really doing this. Unless it's like, I'm wasting my time doing this and I'd rather be doing this. It's really like, go on that walk. Take the time to call that person. Like, do the things that you really want to be doing, because, I mean, we only have this amount of time, and if we don't do it now, then are we going to get the chance? Right? So, anyway, having picked hopefully at least one thing that you found you'd like to change, a good thing that you can use, actually, a lot of the tools and the first one that we already went over is the box method. So I don't think we went into a lot of detail on it, but figuring out what decisions are things that you really want to change quickly or spend a lot of time on. And if the things you just decided you wanted to change, you've already decided you want to change, you know how, then fantastic. Now you're ready to do it. Otherwise, one thing that you guys have probably heard in the past, and is in the book, is the serenity prayer. You guys heard that one? No? Nobody knows the answer? It goes, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And you can replace God with whatever your wisdom is. But part of that is kind of figuring out where you can make these shifts, and then figuring out ways to do it. And one of the tools that I found really helpful and useful in this book is how applicable it is to life. And here at grad school, a lot of the things that I've been studying are really fascinating, and I could like immerse myself in them for days. But it's really hard to study these things and actually then apply them. And at first, when I was reading the book, I was having a little bit of a challenge because it was not necessarily like textbooks that I'm used to using. It wasn't data rich, and it wasn't statistics and all of the other goodies that we tend to rely so heavily on here. But then I started looking at it as a qualitative analysis instead of quantitative. And what this book does for me is it's like a really, really in-depth qualitative analysis with somebody with a lot of experience in learning how to be happy. So this has affected me personally in once you, it's talked about in the book, once you release your fear of death and use death more as even motivation as opposed to something that you let run your life and you're afraid is going to happen one day, it frees you to stop worrying about so many other things. Because if you cannot worry about this big, gigantic thing of death, right, we all kind of don't really talk about, but it's always kind of looming over us, if that stops being something you're afraid of, then what else is there to really lose when that's not the biggest peak? So that has been one thing that has really helped me when.
Okay. Good. We're sitting around on the road tomorrow. We'll be in Pittsburgh. Yeah, and I think that last point is one that I really do very well. Again, you know, I was teasing with Liz, who's my wife saying, Liz, that actually the kind of happiness that I talk about, I call practical happiness. Right? Which is very practical. And the practical thing is, you know, so one thing we all know happens is, yeah, okay. And if you can, like I said, get past that, get over it, move on, stop thinking about it, stop fretting about it, stop thinking about it, shivers in the middle of the night. Oh my God, I'm nuts. Then, you know, really, so you got a rash on your face. Everything else, it puts everything into perspective very quickly. And you know, you just find yourself starting to worry about, you know, the fact that the used car you just bought, you got ripped off on, it's ticking you off. But, yeah. It's not killing you. You're not worried about it getting killed, so okay. All right. Next one. I'm sure somewhere at some point somebody pointed out these are the two biggest wastes of time that you can do. I'd probably say no. Okay. So guilt. I take care of guilt on the forget, move on. Okay. You know, if you can do something about something you've done, great. Okay. But if you can't, that's it. Stop with the guilt. And when it comes to, you know, it's I should have done this, I should have done that. And I know you have friends, or maybe even yourself, you know, where you hear these words. I should have, I should have, I should have. You know, when you get in line for the sold-out movie, I should have done another thing. They have a commercial that says that. Okay? So, you know, you didn't do it. Okay. That's it. It's over. It's done. There's nothing to feel guilty about. Move on. Okay? I mean, I I was telling Heather in the break that one thing that bring up on this, these keys, thinking about these, any of these that become applicable, remember it's a bell curve, some will be nice, some will be not want to try, but any of them that you decide to try, after a while you own them. What I mean by that is you don't have to think about them. Just do it. I don't know, I mean, I've been living this way for so many years, I don't think about it. My wife says, you know, you never worry about anything. And I go, that's true. You really is. You just get better at it. It's practice. You know, like basketball. You know, it's not. There's nothing, you know, hard about it. There's nothing impossible about anything. These are very practical. And then there's worry. Worry gets more complicated than guilt. Okay. How about that real slide is writing? It's a fine line at times between worrying and planning. Okay. And for me, it's the way I try to make that happen for myself is in planning. I think of things that can actually happen. Okay. And that if I'm worried about something happening and there's nothing I can do about it, we have a. Give me this. The house I live in has a very large oak tree, very old, over 100 years old. It's giant. Very pretty, makes the whole house look gorgeous. Okay? But a good portion of the tree hangs over our bedroom. And if that tree ever falls down, those giant limbs are going to crash through that. Okay. So, now we've had our lessons in being happy. I sleep every night soundly in that room. I slept that night with a big windstorm a week ago, whatever that thing is. You know, I took everything down, it was going to fall apart, but I slept in the bed under the big tree. And I was sleep right away, worry about it long. So I had, you know, I could have, okay, decided to sleep in a different bedroom, I guess. Okay. A good father. I could have. That would have been planning. I was planning for the tree to fall over. There was no right answer, but I'm trying to say if I had decided to go for safety's sake, go sleep in, because that was a strange windstorm time of the day. But if every day I'm sitting in that thing worried about that tree, I gotta either sell the house, cut the tree down, or change bedrooms to live in. You know, it's simple. It's worrying about that tree falling in my bedroom is a waste. It's either, you know, plan to do it or no. And that's when you find yourself worrying, and you will find yourself, everybody does this, you'll find yourself worrying, try to catch yourself with, am I worrying or am I planning? What am I doing here? Because if you're worrying, you're just wasting your time. And in a negative way, then it'll get in the way of your and along this is where I get into this planning. I can talk a little bit about planning. It touches on worry. I had a great mentor named David Schoenstatt, wonderful partner, was a doctor, an anesthesiologist. We had a friend who was an anesthesiologist. Anesthesiologist, anybody know the anesthesiologist? There you go. Anal retentive is the personality bell curve type. Okay. And they worry about it. My partner being off the chart personality. And he had a friend, and he said, Thomas, his friend, he said, you know the difference between you and me, Thomas? He said, when I want to drive from San Francisco, he's looking out the window of his office. When I want to drive to San Francisco, I look out, I see my car, I see the first light is green, I get in my car and drive off. He said, you know what you want to do, Thomas? You want to see all the way to Chicago and make every light be green before you get into it. You'll never get into it. This goes with a lot of, there's a slide at the end that we get to it. the over planning is a reckless worry. You know, if I don't, if that's perfect, I'm worried that it won't be good. I won't make it. You know, that's why I connect that to worry. That father-in-law who worked really hard and in a big company. That didn't appreciate what it does. And he and his wife seldom took nice vacations or any vacation. You know, he worked, 2-week vacation. They would pay him for it. They'd find out that he worked every day. He worked at a company called Hughes Aircraft. And he kept saying, "Oh, when I retire, we're going to take all those wonderful trips. You know, we're going to spend 6 months here, 6 months there, and all of these visions." And a year before he retired, his wife got really Alzheimer's. Anyways, okay, we'll let that be. I'm giving you one example. You got your own examples of it. They're everywhere. Okay. So this planning and worrying, don't let each of that. The fun slide. Okay. This is just my own personal trick. I don't know. It might not work. Remember, it's a bell curve. All you guys keep that bell curve in your brain every time I say something. You may not be in this bell curve. I try to have 1 hour of fun every day. No, good point. At least 1 hour of fun. I think that's my quote on that. At least 1 hour of fun every day. I get fun in different ways, so it's not that hard for me. But I highly recommend, an hour. And by the way, exercise and fun can be the same thing, okay? You can double up, it's okay. Yeah, I don't. I use a stationary bike. It's balanced bad. My knees are bad. Everything's bad. So I'm okay. I think while I'm on my stationary bike, that's my double up. I think and exercise at the same time. My fun is separate from my exercise, but you can do it. And don't force yourself to do it. Oh God, I gotta have fun. No. Okay, that's the term of it. Go out and have fun. Okay? You will have fun. That doesn't work. Try it. And one of my favorite things, which I can start later, is I love to read. So if I just read for an hour, that's great. The one thing better for me than reading, I've discovered, is I love to write. So if I write for an hour, I'm in there. Okay? I mean, that is. Problem is, I can't write for an hour. I need 2, 3, 4 hours. So I tend to read. If I have a little bit of time, I get a book out, read somebody else. But if I have lots of time, I write. And I have pure joy. So find those things that do it. Try to give yourself, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5. That doesn't matter. But get some fun. Okay. Yeah, this is my group thing we're not going to do, but it's along with your list. I was going to have you all write down 5 things that you have fun in the group and exchange them and see if there's any that are the same. Because I was wondering if there were 5 things that were saying, but I'm going to let that go. And by the way, we'll work through that exercise. It's just fun. Okay. So, back a little bit on time and money. Time buys money is my cute little way of saying, it usually takes, it doesn't for everybody, but it usually takes some time to make something. So you're exchanging your time for cash. But really it's not cash, it's things. Money is by itself. It's a representation of things. Okay? And money buys time. Okay? Which means that you can pay somebody to clean your house. You can pay somebody to do the things you don't want to do. Right? Or you can buy things, but you buy time. So, remember, I'm an accountant. So this is how I use that. When I'm going to buy something, okay, you can figure this out, but let's just say if excitement is always good. Let's just say you say, I can make $50 an hour, $100, whatever the number is. That's what I can make. So when you buy something for $200, let's say it's $50 an hour, before you walk off with it, you just gave 4 hours of your life away for that thing. That's how I want you to think about it. It's not money. It really is time. It's not sort of time. It's not pretend time. Already is upset. Based on that calculation, I'm not getting enough time. Okay. Mom, I need more time. But try it out. Doesn't work, by the way, in my wife. She sees this recording. Okay, she still buys everything she sees. It's okay. I love you. Okay, but and she makes her own money, so it's her time, her money. So it's your calculation. And she would tell you, she'd look right back at me if she were here, and she'd say, "It was worth the time. That dress was worth it. Those shoes, shoes." So yeah, I mean, I'm not telling you not to buy things. Don't forget the time before. But try it sometime. Especially if you're like vacillating a little bit. Oh, do I really want this? Then think about how many hours. If it's 15 minutes, have fun. Okay, but it's 5 hours of your life.
But it makes you happy to buy it.
Pardon?
I said, but it makes you happy to buy it.
Yeah. It's a calculation. Yeah. It's fun. I don't have, that's what the 5 hours is for, right? I mean, yeah, exactly. But you can't do I'm not a word depressant. Okay.
I'm Jewish, so.
I
say every
Yeah. But try the calculations sometime. No. I got my bell curve over there. I'm done. I guess.
I'll
Yes.
bet you'll take the fun out of it.
If he does, I mean, I did that, but I can't generally afford about it, but sometimes it's worth whatever you're getting worse. My time back, so, or shoes.
Shoes. Which
Sometimes you're worth 10 hours of your time.
I can talk about women's shoes forever, just so you can have. So Liz was right. I'm really nuts. Sometime when you're on Facebook, you can go to a Facebook page, or 2 pages. It's called Fashion Sprout. Okay, and the Fashion Sprout shoe page that I own with a friend has 800,000 pages. I'm one of the largest shoe fashion pages in the world. Okay? And I have no clue about women's shoes. But I thought it was a good idea. So I know, so, and I actually sell fashion. Shoe store and my partner's came. So we only have one store. It's the only place we sell. We do mail order directly. You can actually buy shoes online. You were having fun. Well, my wife's the same way. And my wife is funny. Yeah. She'll say something like, this coat doesn't not comfortable. I said, that doesn't apply with shoes. She's oh no. Shoes, it's not important that they're comfortable. They just have to look good. So, although she has a comfortable pair, but those, she'll bring shoes to a party where they're in the car. They get put on in the car. We walk 8 steps. I have to drop her off in the front door because, if you go more than 8 steps, the shoes are. So then, they're not parking. She gets into the place. She stands around. The party's over. She gets back in the car, takes the shoes off. Perfect. The whole score was how many times did somebody say this? I got the time, money calculation. But I wanted you to ways, not the money, but your time. That's what I want you to do when you're trying to relate to what you're doing. You're taking 4 hours of work for 1 hour of time. Great, done. I don't have a problem with it. It's your calculation. No harm. Yeah. So that's rather than just let money get in between, then you'll lose all track of it. And you can see people do it. They will come out of stuff you go, that's going to take you 8 hours to get to that dessert. Oh, I didn't think it was that way. Okay. All right, not about that. This one's going to be an exercise. Okay, but and I remember the next one. So, how do you spend your time and money regarding your happiness? So you were saying, all the time buying something makes me happy. Okay. A lot better than paying your electric bill if you have to pay, right? Not much fun out of paying. So, I got it. This is just telling you, go ahead and make a list of them. Find out where you're actually spending your money. This is the next chart, which is something people don't do. People think budgets all the time. That's not you. This actually is mine, and I've done this for years. So never mind. This may not apply, you may not have fun with this, but this is how I spend my time. I broke it. I will give you my way. You do it any way you want, or don't do it. But basically, I break my days into 2 times: weekdays and weekends. Okay? And I list all the major things that I do on this thing. I sleep, I eat. Right. And this is, by the way, I just did this a couple of weeks ago, so it's really current. I suppose I work 8, 9, 10, 11. Working. Don't you love commuting? I love it. I work in my house. So, and then the colors, the little color chart on the far right. The brighter the color, the more fun I'm having. Okay. Remember I'm a nerd, so I have an Excel spreadsheet, it calculates percentages, it does everything, it's way over the top, okay? The idea was just to have you analyze what you do somehow. And I have this thing called line 31 unaccounted for. Okay, you don't have to account for every. So that basically tells you that 2 hours a day, those are waking hours. 2 hours a day, I have no idea what I do. I literally don't know. I'm sure it goes somewhere. Okay, and probably in one of those categories, but maybe not. I have no idea. Doesn't matter. Okay. The whole idea is to, how are you spending your time? And are you happy with that? If you don't, it's the thing. If you don't measure it, then it's going to be really difficult to change it. Okay. It's not impossible to change when you're not measuring, but when you measure something, it's a great step towards figuring out. And maybe you don't want to change it. You get that. I get this and smile to myself and say, "Oh, that was fun." I'm very happy with my time. And I sort of found it was amazing that 65% of my time I'm pretty much in the orange and red zone. I know I'm happy with. I spend most of my time doing things that I'm happy with. Okay, so time chart's done. This is good. You guys are young. This is the young you are that have that. Well, not the young you are, but this is more helpful being young because you make changes. Think about it, and it'll have more years to influence you. But so you start with an inventory. Remember, accept reality. So I'm never going to make a mistake. I got over that very quickly. Put down some core strengths, put down some core weaknesses. Just have some idea of You know, your uncle is worth $1 billion. That's the good news. Your uncle doesn't know your first name and you're not in the will. That's bad news. Okay. Inventory. You can inventory whatever you want to inventory. You know, not just personal strength, but financial strength. You know, your last name is Kennedy. You really are one of the Kennedy family, and you put around all the doctors. Right. That's whatever it is, because it'll help you figure out everything else. You know, that's sort of who you are. Where are you going? This is something that changes over time for most people. That little matrix I did for trying to figure out my job is a thing you can use for where you're going if you can't decide where you're going. But a lot of people have, you know, am I going to be a life coach? Am I going to be you have a whole list of things. This is the, you know, the where you're going. So it's good to have some clue, even though it can change. And then my recommendation is, who will go with your question, is really important to get in the right order. Okay. My first marriage, I had no clue on 1 and 2, but I got married to number 3. Okay. I picked somebody to go with me, and after a number of years, okay. And if you had given us a little time, we would have been able to predict that on time. Okay. Both of us. Nice, you know, nice people. Yeah, but totally incompatible from, you know, where we want to go with our lives, and eventually, you know, taking the real answer. So that's it, and you can apply this not just to process. I actually use it when I start companies. So I started Discovery Zone. Anybody ever heard of Discovery Zone? Okay. So one of the companies I started was Discovery Zone. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's an indoor play center for children, reasonably large, not gigantic. And my partner, his name is Ron H. and I, we opened our first one. There were lines out the door. We were all smiles, thinking this was great. And so we had lunch a couple days later. I didn't realize I was doing this, but I was actually doing what I write here. I knew what I wanted. I knew that, you know, this was not something I wanted to run the rest of my life. Okay, this was just one of my many businesses. I was having a great time. I was the CEO. I was running the company, but this was not. This was, you know, this wasn't where I was going. Okay, I didn't want to be the CEO of a big workplace. I grew to 500 stores. So I sat down with Ron and asked him that question. I said, you know, so what is this in your life, Ron? Is this a family? Did we just start a family business? Your family, my family, with employees, kids are going to work on them when you get a little older, blah, blah, blah. Or is this a business we're going to build and sell and do something else? Because you know, when you want to be going in the same direction, even if it's a business. So I do this to the founders at Stanford. I said, when you sit down with your co-founder, you got to ask them, what are we doing here? They have nicknames for it, you know. Start one. It's a cash flow business. Okay, what that means is we're not going public. We're not selling it. We're just going to, you know, work at it. It's going to make money every month, and we just take the money from our pockets and buy things. That's what this business is. This is not being, you know, built to. That's to make sure you're heading in the right direction, not the right direction, the same direction. You know, so it works in relationships, for, you know, marriages and family kind of stuff. But it also works in other things, whether, you know, whatever you're starting. Maybe starting a charity. You know, I started the Women's Sports Foundation many years ago, and you know, we had an idea. When we started for one reason, but very quickly we decided what we wanted to do. And the three of us, we started to all do what we wanted this organization to do, was be the leading thing in women's sports. They had to take all the risks, they had to do it, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And we all agreed, so we all went in the same direction. That's what's important. Okay? Whenever you get it wrong, it's like, it's the unhappiness part, Since I've been divorced, I can tell you this not happening. Okay. This is a fun one. I think they're all fun. I'll always say that. This is another fun one. What do you want your life to be about? And it can be about a lot of things. Okay? So it can be about having wonderful children. Okay? But at the same time, it can be about creating the best dental institution on the city. Okay? And they're not diametrically, you've got time management problems, but they're not opposed to each other. They just grab time. So your life can be about more than one thing. But you ought to have some idea what you want it to be about. People say, what do you want on your tombstone? But that's actually the question in a funny kind of way. When you put it in a tombstone, it seems kind of weird to me. But when you just ask yourself, what do I want? When I'm talking to myself, what was my life about? I mean, sort of like, why am I sitting up here? Okay, what happened is I wrote this book for my grandkids. A bunch of people read it. They got very excited. So, and said, hey, maybe you ought to do more with that. So I thought, well, maybe this will help more people. So right now, my life is about, seeing if I can give these little practical ideas that I've used for, in some cases, 40, 50 years, that for at least one person, you work like a charm. Okay. And I started to get, I get email, some of it's kind of cute, but I get stories, it's just fun to read. One guy wrote me recently that, a month ago, that he loved the book, blah, blah, blah. And he had a 13-year-old nephew who was having trouble walking the nephew the book, and they're reading it chapter by chapter together. Okay? And it seems to be helping. Oh, I'm feeling great here. What's my life about? My happiness. I mentioned John Hughes, the writer who also was comedy, and it tells you what his life was about. We had this conversation. I had just started Discovery Zone. All these kids were piling in, and we had more and more scores. And eventually, by the way, more kids are going to Discovery Zone every day than Disneyland, Disney World. And we were discussing on the phone who had provided last week more laughter to children. His movies or my scores. Not how many tickets do we sell, not how many stock shares, none of that. It's about, and his life was about that. We'd sit in the back of the theater and watch his movies. And it was just a joy to listen to him. God, how did they miss that? That was one of my best jokes. By the way, he'd say, whenever he wrote a script, if the audience got 50% of the humor, it was a hit. Okay? He was happy at 50%. He was all, and he's not different. He's normal in that regard. You watch these people, what their lives are about. So ask yourself, we're picking a celebrity, but ask yourself, what is it about? So when my children were growing up, I took 13 weeks of vacation every year. I discovered that from divorce proceedings. My former wife gave me a list of where I spent my time. And I discovered I had actually taken 13 weeks for the last 5 years. Although 2 of which were just with children, or not just with the families. And my life at that point, remember I said it changes over time, was about spending time and having fun with my children when they were growing. And somebody said, "Oh, you could do that because you had your own company." And I said, "Yeah, this is back to your company. Are you ready?" Because you know how I got to do that? I made less money. Trust me, if I had worked 10 of those 13 weeks, I would have made a lot more money. And taking 13 weeks off, I'm pretty nuts. Okay? And that's the decision. I didn't, by the way, I never made that calculation. I didn't know we could start taking off. But my life was about, big chunk, 13 weeks is 25% of it, okay? It's doing the math. Okay. 25% of my total, just using the vacation time was that. Okay. I take less vacations now than I did when my kids were young. All right. Okay. This is sort of silly that I put my own cover in there, but I figured why not? I could have put any book in there. And really, this is a little technique I use for fun that I've used for many, many years. And partly, if you like to read, especially if you like to read fiction, you might relate to this. So think of your life. Okay? Take a step for 75 pounds, stepping out of your life. Take yourself out of your own life, look down, and your life is a book or a movie. Books are easier to read. Okay? So your life is a book. And you're reading along, and right now you're in this room. Okay? And you have a decision to make. You can't decide what that's going to be. And it's one of those very decisions where box is in, you know. So if you were reading this book, reading your life, okay, what would you main character be reading? Go back to the old boy and on TV. But think about it. Sometimes that will help you take a step that you might not otherwise make. If you step away from your life, get rid of the book, go back into your life and say, now what do I want to do? And you call your husband up and you say, I've decided our vacation, we're going to Patagonia. What? Well, I thought about our life as a book, and I'm tired of going to Lake Tahoe for the 15th time in a row. We're going somewhere else. Okay, that's how that happened. Okay. So, if nothing else, maybe you'll have a fun thing about your life as a book. That's all that's actually what that is about. This is a fun kind of thing that we're not going to do. I'm going to do a shorter one, but it's a little game that you can play about things being important. Okay. So people change. You change, I change, everybody changes. Okay. That's sort of what I guess. And some people don't change. This can lead to massive problems. It usually starts with you want someone to change the way you like them. My wife wishes I would dress better. By the way, these socks are my fashion statement. I tease, I say, Tiffany's married Costco. Okay? That's how I'm not going to get any better at this. So, I'm not going to, she may wish and hope that I would change, but she better not make it important for herself because let me disappoint. And that's something you kind of learn over time, whether it's coworkers, bosses, spouses, the neighbor's kids, the neighbor's dog. I mean, so few things change, especially changing the way you would like them to change. They can change, but how they change, and you may not even have much control over it. Changing yourself is tough, by the way. That's why these little things I'm giving you, hopefully none of these are changes. These are just things to do. They may change your happiness, but they're not going to change you. You may be a happier person, but I trust you, you're still the same. You're another son, but I am. So instead of changing people, change the way you deal with it. So you're in control of that. Okay? So, it's like my deal with my wife and my lack of fashion. So how do we compromise? Whenever we're going someplace that I think she thinks that I need to look good, I ask politely if she will pick out what she wants me to wear. And when she's feeling snarly, she says, "Can't you do anything?" Remember the answer to them? You know, but I'm going to pick the line. You want me to pick it? I'll pick it. Okay. But so we just changed the way we deal with the same issue. Okay. And that's why I get around the changing issue. It's like golf. I definitely have a type A personality. Okay? And it doesn't show up very much anymore, but it's still making me tired. Okay? And the game golf is like the worst thing I can possibly do with type A personality, which I discovered in the teens, losing my temper continuously in a golf course. And that reason is I was competing against, not the guy next to me, who cares about me? That's a minor league A. You're just competing with the person next to you, you're not very A-minus personality. Okay. And if I were competing against the golf course, that's a straight A. That's an A. I'm competing against the course. The guy next to me doesn't matter. I'm going to beat this piece of dirt. Really hard. An A+ personality, okay, is competing against the best he's ever played that hole in his entire life. I got a 3 here once, and if I don't get a 3 this time, I'm for shit. Okay? That's baseball true visible experience, doesn't it? Yes. Oh, I haven't. I've done it already.
Okay.
Yeah, I love golf. I love golf. And I only do one thing. I don't keep score. Oh, by not keeping score, when I hit every shot, I go for it. I can get over this lake. I hit 4 balls in the lake one time. I was going to hit a 5th, and I thought, I don't need to prove it to anybody, but I can do it. Apparently today, I can't get over the lake. I don't finish holes occasionally. And by the way, okay, but I'm having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm not sure. Okay. Goals. So, goals and happiness. Remember, this is all about happiness, not about goals. Okay. So, my view is sort of a so most people say don't let distractions interfere with your goals. And I kind of say happiness says don't let your goals interfere with your happiness. Okay. So, and I do this because most often when I find people who reach their goals, there is a tiny situational happiness or not. It's over with very quickly and life just goes on. Okay. So, I got my degree. Okay. Done. Moving on. Now we're going to do tomorrow. So, if you set the goal up and you study like crazy and you give up your social life and you give up your friends and you get that PhD, you gave up an awful lot when you set a goal. So, as Liz said, I went to the Stanford Business School years ago. I got to watch my type A personality classmates, okay? And Stanford, but they have big reunions every 5 years. So every 5 years, a reasonable number of people show up to these things, like half the one. They make a big deal. This is business school. And you get to see your old friends. So, and, it's interesting to see what people gave up for some of these goals. How not happy they are. Even when they're pretending to be happy, it takes about 2 seconds to figure out, oh, I'm not happy. And there was an awful lot of trading of life for goals in that. And a lot of them hit their goals. Trust me, it's a very business successful group. No doubt. So those goals, they were hit. What did they cost? It was pretty. I think goals are great. I just don't, just don't let your goal. So what I do with founders, what I do with founders of companies, when you're doing a startup, you're going to spend an awful lot of time in that endeavor. It's going to eat your life up. So you had better make sure that while that's occurring, you are actually happy. Instead of saying, you know, once we're successful, then I can be happy. Okay? Because, you know, that's tough time. Short spurts of it, fine. But long term, life goals can be very different. Okay. Breathing along. Be your biggest cheerleader. That's what. Okay? If you aren't, nobody else will be, sort of, like I said. So, yeah, when people tell you you can't do it, you should be the first person telling yourself you can. It's okay if they don't think you can do it. The way I like to approach this is, so, especially with kids and self-esteem, I don't know if any of you deal. Any of you deal with kids? Yeah, okay. So, you can't give anyone self-esteem, right? Sort of by definition, it's self-esteem. You can give them opportunities to maybe obtain something. But one thing that I'm sure there's studies by it, that seems to work quite nicely is you find something that they're good at. Actually, they find something that they're good at, that they like. And you take that as a core item to encourage them. I mean, and they have to be, you know, they have to be their own cheerleader. I can do. You'll see it in a kid. It doesn't take much. So they get very excited about their piano lessons, and then you can listen to the really just, you know, I mean, they're you know, they're never necessarily going to go on and get concert pianists, but you know, being able to play a musical instrument is very lots of self-esteem. So you let that kind of be part of your life, or their life, and they become their own cheerleader, because once they start to say, I can do this, I can play this, you'll see it in a kid, and do it to yourself. Find something that you're good at. The one that I remember doing when I was in high school by chance was I can hear songs for the first time, and I have what I call common music taste. So I have no music ability. Let's get that on the table. I can barely music. Yeah. But if I think a song is going to be a hit, I have it very good odds. I think above average odds. Okay. And so eventually I started to pick them in high school and tell somebody, you heard the song, it's going to be good. Right? And later on, people would say, hey, you told me that was going to be good. And of course, I really wasn't as good as they thought I was, but I only mentioned the ones that I was right on. The ones I guessed wrong, I just forgot those, and I just, you know. So people actually thought I was better at picking music than I was. And it was good for myself. Okay? That's being your own cheerleader kind of thing. I just pick something I'm slightly better at, and I like it. Okay? This is how I run a house. I was a single dad for several years. And there were no rules in my house, which sort of really nuts, except one, respect. And it turns out that, at least in the way I run a household, that's the only rule you need. Because the first thing you need to do is respect yourself. And if you respect yourself, you're not doing progress. There's a whole lot of things. There's a whole lot of rules that come out of respecting yourself that aren't rules. They're not rules. They're not rules. Okay. But if you can get them to respect themselves, they become rules. And then when you're done respecting yourself, there's respecting everyone else in the house. And suddenly all the other rules show up. But they're their rules. They're not your rules. So what I used to say is, you know, we'd have all kinds of discussions about, you know, doing things with the kids. And like was always say, I would have what I think we should do. Like chew with your mouth closed. And that's not a rule. Remember, we have respect. We don't have a rule that says chew with your mouth closed. So I would tell them, hey, Mark, chew with your mouth closed. But I wasn't allowed to say that unless I could answer the question that I taught the kids to ask, which is why? You know why you should chew with your mouth closed? Anyone want to volunteer? I know it's for everyone. Okay. Spitting on others, it's okay, but he wasn't spitting. He was a closet, he just did this all, the food didn't go anywhere. I said, so here's why. I remember doing this. The chew with your mouth closed was that I said, it is a little disgusting to look at. I said, but quite honestly, you're sitting over here, and I'm usually looking over here, so I don't see it very often. Okay. 1, 2. When you're 18, I always say this. When you're 18, you're out of here. Okay. So I've only got another 5 years. I can put up with it for 5 years. It doesn't cost me not to love you. That has nothing to do with it. They said, so what? I know the reason, Mark. It's others. And I said, let me give you 2 kinds of others. I said, the most important, but you don't know this yet, it's girls. Okay. Girls do not want to go out with a guy who's being shown while they're eating. It's just, and you're going to have less girls. And right now, you don't care about girls, but trust me, that's coming. It's coming soon. It's coming soon. And I said, the next thing is, you're going to get out of school, you're going to get a job. And I said, lots of times, people meet at mealtime to discuss ideas in business. And I said, people don't know who you are. They don't know who to listen to. If you're the person with a great idea who chews with his mouth open, they may not listen to your idea. They'll judge your idea by your manners. Okay? Because that's all they have. They don't know your idea yet. And so why do you have manners? You have manners for yourself. You don't have. So I'm giving reasons. You may not like my reasons, but having reasons behind whatever these little things were that weren't rules, it's like they were about respect, and why? But why? Okay. Try this. There's a viral video on. I saw it on Facebook, but I don't know. I wish I kept it. It's someplace in England. They set up this was done on purpose. It wasn't a chance video. And they had people waiting for a train, a commuting train, all looking like that elevator photo I had earlier. This morning, nobody wants to go to work. And one guy, who's the actor, starts laughing out loud. And within 2 minutes, there are 25 people on the platform, all smiling or laughing. Okay. It's contagious. And read something funny. Watch funny. So laughing is good. Relaxing. How do I relax? I watch the same movies. Okay, and I'm guilty of this. Quite busy. I watch You've Got Mail, which I can watch at least once a month. Okay, and Something's Got to Give. I can watch that movie probably twice a week. Okay, they're corny. I love them. And I laugh at the same place. I can watch Sabrina next year. I laugh at the same place every time. It makes me happy. I'm fine with it. The fact that I've seen the movies more than 25 times each, yeah. I don't have to find a new company. I don't have to do it. I can just do that. It's mindless. My mind can wander. I come back down. Oh, I like that. Okay. Find something that allows you to do that. We have a bench in our backyard. We let it go. And I have an uncomfortable bench that's out there. And sometimes in the morning I'll just go out and sit and watch whatever's out there, which is usually not very long. I'll pick out a flower, just relaxing. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to go to a special park. I don't know. Just find it. It can be any good kind of thing. One more thing on laughing. Laugh at yourself. This is a much deeper sentence. Okay? Don't take yourself so seriously. You're, let me be the, if not the first, one of the many to tell you, you're not that important. Okay? We're so unimportant in the grand scheme of things that, and whenever you see anybody who thinks they're important, I mean, it's like, oh, the people cut in line, watch them drive on the freeway sometimes. You're going to hurt somebody out here. Are you that important? Maybe there are some people who are that important. Yeah, okay, but there's so few of them, and they're not. So I have one of the guys I used to work with. I started. This was an internet bubble company called alladvantage.com. They paid people to search the web. This was my CFO, who now runs the Kimpton hotels, like 200 hotels, for example. So, guys, get out now. But we were talking about laughing at himself, and I tease about having started these companies and run these things, but I'm actually not a very good manager. I'm a really good manager if everyone who reports to me doesn't need any manager. If they're self-starters, they know when to bring problems, they don't need anyone looking over them. I'm the guy. Mike Davis, my friend, he said the same thing. He's up to 9,000 employees, and he can't manage his way out of the paper bag. He got his MBA from Harvard, I got an MBA. They knew how poor managers were. Okay? That's being able to, that's one form of how I laugh at myself. With all that schooling, I'm terrible at it. It's okay. I'm doing just fine. So apparently Mike's doing really well. And he can't manage anything. All right. One of my favorite song lyrics. This is, I'll cut to the chase because I'm trying to get one more. Great. This is especially important with spouses. Let them go. Let them go. If they love you, they'll be there. And I don't mean they'll ever leave, they'll just love you. Don't control. Let them make mistakes. I'll use my wife in my dressing. She never tells me what to wear. I always ask her. Let me go. Therefore, I always ask her. I don't want to look like a bumpkin. She knows what to do. So, if you're spending a lot of time and effort trying to get your kids to get right, or your spouse to do it right, well, I don't fail. Especially when it comes to you, your relationship. We sort of talked about this as the backyard bench. Well, my actual favorite place is the beach. I can walk on the beach and feel better just about any time, any day. And one of the main reasons it works for me is it makes me feel absolutely insignificant. If I felt small in that conversation we had 2 minutes ago, when I said we were nothing, now I'm less than a grain of sand. When I sit at the beach and go, you have to take yourself back. Take yourself to the beach and imagine how many million ways did that beach, and none of them with anybody seeing it. And you are important. Okay? Find a special place. It can be a closet, okay? It doesn't have to be a beach. But find a special place at the river and go there occasionally. I go occasionally. I go when I don't need to. I usually take a bus. And then just let yourself go. I know people meditate, and that's a great way to do it. But I use my little special. This one makes me feel small, and I need that. Okay. Okay. Getting. It turns out it's better to give than to receive. For happiness. I know there's some studies that actually confirm that, but my other little thing is, while it's better to be a giver than a taker, in my personal opinion, it's better to hang around givers. So it's one thing to be a giver, that's great, but actually, I think you'll be happier if the people you're around are also givers. Not that you're a taker, but they're just other givers, because they tend to be happier people. It gets contagious. So if you find yourself, like when I find myself, because I start to do businesses all the time, with different people in my life all the time, and when I find a taker, I try to figure out how not to have that person continue to be in my life. Okay. I want my partners to be givers. Because if they're giving and I'm giving, then the people receiving are probably the customers and the other co-workers or everybody else. And trust me, that works a whole lot better than if your partner is sitting there full time trying to figure out how much money. That, when it's all about, when we sell this, that's a good check. The magic word is not please. Okay? In my life, I kind of alluded to this before. My magic word is yes. And when I write this one, I write this and people are over the board. They look it up. Is that stretch yourself. And only you know how much you can stretch beyond your normal. But if I vacation where you go to Lake Tahoe every year, and I said, I go to Patagonia. Maybe Patagonia is too far, but months or something. Stretch yourself in what you do. Go to the belly. When's the last time? Anybody been to the belly? Anybody go to the belly for holidays? We got one. You don't need to listen. The rest of us need to listen. Take a belly. I think I wrote it somewhere. That for some people, going to Patagonia and going to the ballet are equal stretches for them. I forgot what else. But do something you don't do. Not because it's going to be painful. It's the opposite. Stretch. Do something that you might not otherwise do. Say yes. My wife asked about going someplace on Sunday. We're going to work with some show, and I didn't even let her finish. I said, "Yeah, I'll go." And I'm sure it's one of these things I'm not necessarily thrilled to go, but I'm going to stretch and going to live. I'm sure it's going to be some exotic dance thing that I'm not going to understand until I'm in the car coming home. And I would explain to me what's going on. It's okay. You got to do. And in my life, the number of interesting people, interesting things I've gotten to do because of saying yes. Not yes to the wrong, driving 200 miles, no. I don't think hard this night, yes, I need these things. But, and I would love to, there's hundreds of them, I'm trying to think of one that's kind of funky and fun. So Billie Jean called one time, I was tired. She said, you want to go to dinner tonight? And I wasn't feeling it. I said, yes. She said, well, I don't know, you don't know who Billie Jean King is. Does anyone not know who Elton John is? Okay. Her best friend is Elton John. So I said yes, that we were in New York. I was in Philadelphia. And so I stretched. I didn't really want to go to dinner again, but I said, okay. She said, well, Elton's in town. I didn't know. I would have said yes, faster. Elton's in town, and we're going to meet him at this hotel. So we go, I meet her at the hotel. we go up to this suite. This was 1976, long time ago. Elsewhere, long. And Paul McCartney's there. Okay, so now we're and there's 20 people in the room, and it turns out 8 of us are going to dinner, and so they're talking and we're fine. Hour later, we go out to dinner. We go downstairs, and 2 limos full. So I do what I usually do when I'm like that. I step back, BG, and I step back, and 6 people get in with the limo, and there's one other guy and I waiting. For the second one, we're gonna have just 2 of us. Works for me. So we get in there, and I did say to him, I remember this sort of after the fact. I said something about, I guess with the BT. And he goes, yeah, he said, this is my first time in America. His name was my first time in America. I introduced myself, and he introduced himself, and he said, yeah, my name's Freddie Mercury. I'm opening on that tour. So I'm riding around Manhattan with Freddie Mercury, who at the time was just, the opening act. And that, came from saying yes to dinner. So, step out. I just downloaded the book. I'm sure it's going to be interesting. I won't tell you that. But it was written in 1500. It's say yes. So it's not like a one-time, not like it's just say yes to some bigger things, say yes to some little things. It's the magic word. And, don't say yes to something that scares the crap out of you. I've never bungee jumped. I'm not interested in having my spine really defined. I know it would be safe. I'm sure I haven't done it. I don't need to say yes to it. So, think some things. They'll come along. It will just be things that come along. You won't have to find things to say yes to. It's the other way around. They'll come to you. And you just have to say yes. It's the easiest thing. It's a magical word. It works a lot better for you. That's my closing slide. No, there's no $100. It's a one-time offer. Nice subscribe. I see the smile over there. I won't keep you any longer. I think Heather said, but also the idea, what I wrote in the book, the idea, this is the first time I try something like this, is all of these things that I wanted to give my grandchildren, which is why I wrote the book. I found all these actual real people who, but others that have read the book are actually, I get quotes all the time from people. It's just like and there's nothing in this book, and that's probably said today that you did already know. There may be slight variations with what you know, and some of it may be on part of the reason. But if you take away some of these things, if you want to know, as I said, the Happy Class has a web page. You can get a list of my little 24 keys. Most of these things are on there. It makes me feel good. I'm like John Hughes. It makes me feel good to think that people are actually reading my book and they're using it and they're actually having happier lives. It's really cool. It's really and I'm happy if I don't have to move it. Matter of fact, it's really millions. So thank you for coming and have a happy day. Yes, my golf pros just showed up.
Yeah.